Good evening, KZFR. My name is Kevin, and I am your host, here with my co-host, Kylene. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Kevin. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. The weather, as you were saying earlier, is getting pretty warm. I know today was pretty hot. It's evening now, so thankfully it's cooled down a bit.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is Writing on Air, and we are a show that allows writers to... I've explained this many times before, but I'll do a little bit of a recap here. Allows writers to have a platform for their pieces. And basically, we take submissions from anywhere and everywhere, from all ages, and then air them with some pieces of music, and then, go from there. Analyze them a little bit, kind of critique them, not really in a bad sense, but like look at how they're written, pull out pieces, pull out themes, pull out elements and stuff like that.
Yeah, constructively look at what we see as readers.
Yeah, and we haven't in a while, Colleen, but you have some outstanding qualifications to be here, so maybe you should reiterate those.
Yeah, I actually just graduated Chico State with my master's in creative writing, so I know a little bit about writing.
Just a little bit.
All right, and then my first master's actually is in education, so I teach and I write, so those are my qualifications. And I also just got a job at Butte College.
Ooh.
Teaching composition, a couple classes there, so this is a very exciting
Wow,
moment for me.
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm definitely more qualified than I am. I just press the buttons back here.
Which is far more qualified than I am. I always blow it.
Well, anyways, we'll get right into our pieces. That way we can start the ball rolling here. So this first piece is called Overcame by, is it Aaron Gormley?
Gromley, yes.
Gromley, okay. All right. She stands, steady as a stone, smooth from wear and tear, and now she shines. Stoned no longer is she. She's been through rocky times of use and abuse, rubbing up against others, being herself weighed down and watered. Ravished by waves, weathered and shored, over and over again. Stumbled, rumbled, and tumbled upon through the sands of time. Only to come out gleaming does she give off the speckle of gold. In her eye, in her experience, under wells, she still sparkles. In her eccentricity, she's an ever-drifting snowflake, uniquely cool, wet to the touch, salt of the earth to taste. Undeterred, undermined, unquivering, unpenetrable, unbreakable. Shattered not, shaking her fist. She's a stone, standing strong and steady. That was Overcame.
All right. What would you say you believe this poem to be about?
I almost want to say finding yourself and finding that you actually have a lot of strength. Maybe the things that did wear you down have really made you. Obviously, they're talking about ravished by waves, weathered and shored, but we see like people becoming smooth. Where is that part? I missed it. Way down and watered, but becoming smooth that when rough things kind of wear you down, essentially. Rocky times of use and abuse, and becoming the person after that you want to be.
Okay, becoming better after those trials and tribulations, as it were.
Yeah.
Lots of similes, or maybe metaphors. Similes, it doesn't say like, I don't believe. I was kind of dazed in this. She's and, so she is. I guess these are similes here. Lots of, like we've got snowflakes, then we have stones, and so there's a lot kind of going on here.
Yeah.
And I would, I imagine that the author is trying to describe a person who still doesn't know who they are. They're a snowflake, they are gold, they are a stone, they are just so much kind of going on, which, in snowflakes, obviously, there's only one, you don't have more than one type unique. Of snow. Yeah, they're very, very unique. So we do have a lot going on in the poem, which would make me think that the author is trying to express the fact that there's a lot going on in this particular she.
Yeah.
We don't know who this she is. I say this every time. I push against she's and theys and yous because we don't know who this person is. But maybe that's okay for this, because we don't know who this she is, and maybe we can say, I'm that she, or I know someone who's that she.
Yeah, ambiguity makes relatability.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so very unique. This poem has some kind of specific line breaks I'm noticing real quick. Lots of them, they're just one lines. They end in periods.
Yeah.
Or actually, in fact, as I'm looking at it, every single line ends in punctuation, which is really surprising because a lot of times with poems, what you like to do is at the end of a line, you take away the punctuation so you keep rolling with the poem. And this being a poem about rolling and rubbing against either, rocks or themselves or others, I'm surprised the author didn't actually keep the poem rolling, but instead chose to use punctuation. So it's like each line is its own sentence. She stands steady as a stone, period.
Like taking a heavy step almost. Step stops. Step stops.
Yeah. So it's kind of, for me, I just see, I don't know, I would have to ask the author the intention on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've got a lot of just stopping. And maybe that's the idea of stopping and thinking, who am I? You know, maybe pausing.
Down.
Pausing when agitated, you agitate rocks to become, smoother. So I don't know. There's so much that we could read into this, which again, the only reason why I push against being abstract is sometimes we read into poems. I think last week we talked to one of the actual authors of some of their works, and they said, well, I do that on purpose.
Yep.
Yeah, but then we kind of read sometimes too much into these works because of the ambiguity. So, as authors out there, if you're okay with that, then we're going to read into it what we will.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about our next, the next time we have a show, we'll talk about The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams, because I know Kevin has his little take on that.
I'll prime that at the end for the next show. I think it'll be good. But I also like too in this that there's an obvious development, because you're talking about the rock being worn down, but then kind of finding that it's strong. And at the start, she says, she stands steady as a stone. And then right at the end, that was the first line. The last line is, she's a stone, standing strong and steady. So there's that, that entire, I'm trying to think of the words for it. The start and finish obviously kind of tie together. She stands steady as a stone. She sees herself as this, strong person, but then it gets worn down very much, and then all of a sudden she finds that through that wearing down, she's actually still stronger for it. She's a stone standing strong and steady.
Or the she is, not the author, obviously.
Well, that's what I'm making reference to, the she in this, but yeah, exactly. And so there's this, even through all that, there's still that strength there, which I appreciate that at the start and the beginning.
And there's also some moves that this particular author does. She's steady as a stone. We got a lot of S's going on here. She's a stone standing strong and steady. So there's a lot of alliteration. We're trying to, sometimes with that rhymes, you can make a beat, or kind of make a flow. So we've got a little bit, we've got undeterred, undermined, unquivering, unpenetrable, literally there's a lot of uns. Which, then you question if are you trying to undo stuff? If you got so many uns, what would be the purpose in using so many uns? Is it are you going for the rhymes? Are you going for the word? Are you going for the actual metaphorical undoing all the things that led this particular person to where they are, to where they have to be ground down to be a better person? Yeah.
Or even possibly missing being not ground down. The times before the tribulations and all that stuff going on. They want that back almost. But then at the end, there's the resolution there. They're the stone standing strong and steady. Yeah,
which is weird because then the words themselves are actually very strong words. We have, undeterred, unquivering, unpenetrable. So it's kind of, you've got these uns with these stronger words. Yeah. So again, for me in poems and poetry, word usage is key. It is like when you do a poem, I've had, people stare at, 4 different words. Which one is going to say the thing I need to use? And so to use all of these, I would assume that there's something completely intentional with each use. I wouldn't imagine this is just something where they throw it together and go, oh, I don't know, that word sounds good.
Yeah.
I don't know because I don't know the author. But to me, usually that's when I see poems, there's a reason why they use these particular words. So.
Yeah, and that's what we're saying. When there's things grouped together that are similar or different in a juxtaposition sort of way, we usually read in that because that's very most likely intentional, as you're saying.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, this next piece Yeah.
We just read so much into that poem. Sorry.
Yeah. We're laughing because we had authors on last week or a couple weeks ago, and we were talking to them about how much people read into their stuff when maybe that wasn't the intent.
Yeah.
And you can tune into that one. It's on YouTube. But it's pretty funny because a lot of times we pull out more than the author is intending.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sorry if we do that. Please call in and let us know or something.
Well,
Right
that's
on.
why I push against abstractness, because I don't
Yes,
want to
yeah.
offend an author. I'm like, but I didn't know who it was. Just she. Did you mean the universe or did you mean the girl next door? So yeah.
So we do our best, but sometimes we'll read too much into it. So this next piece is by Lily Alski, and she submitted many pieces before, which we appreciate because she's helped keep this show going. And
Thank
you
you,
can resubmit pieces. That's one thing too. So if you've submitted once and you want to submit again, please do. We'll give you the links to that at the end, so stay tuned. But this one is called Only a Lily. And to be clear, that is Lily. Pluck from petals of mine hands, salty drops scarlet. Hearts pulsating misunderstands, rosy dreams starlit. I'm caught in the throes of life, hope of a hero, but more befit to mundane and ordinary strife. Tell me, I want you to admit, whilst privileged you might be here, our souls are so violently unfit to live and die a nobody. Only in sentience can mine aching be acquit. How nice life would be if only a lily. That was only a lily.
All right.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on with that one.
Oh, yeah.
I have to be honest with you. I have really, truly no idea what this is about. And maybe because I'm getting caught up in certain like words that I keep seeing salty drops scarlet, and I just imagine blood.
Yeah.
And I could, again, be reading into that. Salty also reminds me of sweat. Other than it being a breaking heart, it sounds like somebody would be leaving. So I don't know. I don't know what your take is on this one.
Hearts pulsating misunderstands. Rosy dreams starlit. There's like a misleading thing right there. It's like the heart is longing for something. These rosy dreams, these starlit, but she's caught, or he could be whatever, the lily, in the throes of life, hope of a hero, but more befit to mundane and ordinary strife. As in, I think there's that common adage or something that everyone's looking to be saved. Maybe this type of lily is looking for that too, hoping for a hero, but really is only going to get in ordinary strife in this existence.
Yeah, I actually just caught this. Hands understands, scarlet lit, life strife, befit, admit, be, nobody, unfit. There's a lot of rhyming going in here. You know what? Like for me, sometimes poems maybe don't. There's like the Button Box or something. There's a poem out there, and I'm forgetting what it is. And the whole point of this one poem is all about the word and how they taste in your mouth. This poem, to me, I'm more attracted to the words used, the language used. It's very eloquent. It's very almost flowery, in a sense. And for me, I just love that. Usually, I don't look for rhymes at the ends, but this I found as you were reading, catching these rhymes at the end, and it was so well done. I missed it the first time.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really beautiful. And it's really hard to do poems with the rhyming endings and be able to get away with it so well.
Yeah.
And it could also be the way you read it. But like the other poem when we were talking about it ending with all kinds of punctuation, this does not have that same punctuation. So you find yourself in a flow with it. So in reading it, you just kind of go with it. And it was just really, to me, there's so many beautiful things. Rosy dreams, starlit. We've actually got some colors going on here. We have scarlet, but then we have rosy. And those are two kind of, they're both close and different at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing some sort of violence, but at the same time, a dreamy kind of sense. So I really got taken away by this poem, and maybe that's why I lost myself. I'd have to read it a couple times to maybe understand what it means.
Yeah.
But I loved that. I loved that I got lost in this poem itself.
What I like too is most lilies, being flowers, grow in like ponds or maybe slow moving rivers, and that's kind of what this felt like to me as well. Caught in the throes of life, like there's a movement to the piece, which also speaks to the meaning, I guess, too, as in like everything is consistently flowing. There's no grounding thing essentially, to live and die and nobody. It's very, very just I don't know the word for it. I want to say open, but open is the wrong thing here, I think.
Yeah. I feel like it kind of was, though, in a sense. It is and it isn't.
Yeah.
You know, again, when I talk about concrete things, we do have certain things that are, like we have hands, but that's like it. We have so much openness to this poem that, you know, it's not that we can read into it because it's not pertaining to me or you or, you know what I mean? There's no actual she's or he's. It just is. And there's something beautiful about that.
Yeah.
Though hopefully if the author is trying to get across something specific, I can't grab it totally just yet other than heartache and, but at the same time questioning self, but I'm not sure.
I like it too. For me, the meaning is in those last two lines really potently. Only in sentience can mine aching be acquit. Only in lacking perception, I had to look this up because I wasn't entirely sure. Lacking perception or consciousness or animation in sentient is the definition there. Can mine aching be acquit? How nice life would be if only a lily, as in if only I could just be a flower and not have to worry about these things, hoping for a hero. Probably just going to hope for a hero the rest of my life, but only really get to be a mundane, ordinary strife.
Yeah.
I want you to admit, whilst privileged you might be, our souls are so violently unfit to live and die a nobody. They want more than this, and we can't stop that. It would just be so much better to have no feeling, almost, is what they're saying. Like there's a grief almost just to live and die a lily. How nice it'd be if only we had to worry about growing in that one sense. And I think there's, not to read too much more into it, but Lily has a lot of... Lily, Lily, not the author, but the flower, has some meaning. I think it's like rebirth or something like that. In most cultures, it's seen as something, but I can't speak on that too well because I don't know. But yeah, I think this is seen like almost a critique of life, looking at it and saying, wow, I wish that I could just not have to feel all this because I want so much more than what I'm actually probably going to get. And that's sad, to live and die a nobody, because that's probably how most people will live and die.
Yeah, we strive so hard to be a thing,
Or
but
to
what
want
is
a
that thing
thing.
in the end?
Yeah.
I love, real quick, our souls are so violently unfit to live and die a nobody. That soul so violently unfit, that is such a beautiful line.
Yeah.
Our souls are so violently unfit. What's beautiful is that line break right there. The anaphora she uses right before that next line, to live and die a nobody. Those two lines literally hold their own.
Yeah.
And then together they make that ultimate statement of, wow, that right there, those two lines, I would want to hold those and put those somewhere. They're just beautiful. I just think it's so great. And then violently unfit, you can just imagine trying to put two magnets together and they just keep exploding away. So,
and that's the whole saying there too, is the souls want more. It's unfit, and it's almost violently so. It will seek out, it will try to not have this, to live and die a nobody. They want something. These souls want a hero, want a less ordinary strife. They want to be recognized. They want all this stuff, but it's not happening.
yeah.
So the only thing after that is to overcome it by just not feeling it.
I love how this poem unfolded for us. That was really beautiful.
Like a lily opening up the morning. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, for us, like, to be able to, go through and read a poem and then constantly come back to it and find something that made sense. That was awesome. That was like, to me, that's what I love about poetry sometimes, is how literally it unfolded like a flower. Can we just say? That was awesome. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we have one last piece. It's a little bit longer. Do you want to explain maybe the start of this?
Yeah, I'll give it real quick. This is actually one of my students. His name is Tim Goodwin. Really, really good at descriptions, which is why I wanted to use this. It's just a story. It's a what do you call it? It's a nonfiction piece. It is real. Really did happen. My students are required to write about food in a lot of their works, and he does a really good kind of subtle job of the food being there, but without it really being there. So it kind of guides the work.
Yeah, all right.
And it's called Hole in the Wall. Alex wasn't usually the type of person to make frequent stops on long trips. That's why it surprised me when he pulled into a tiny local diner on the edge of a hidden backwoods town. The place looked small, not much bigger than a garage. There were only 2 cars aside from our own. "You hungry?" Alex asked me, at the last breaking the silence. "Yeah, I guess so," I answered. I was hungry. I didn't particularly want to spend money on food, but we had already parked, so I wasn't going to complain. We left the car and headed into the diner. The restaurant was dimly lit, but as soon as you walked in, the smell of grease and meat was almost overwhelming. My stomach let out a long, low growl. This was the type of place that served huge, unhealthy portions of food, but also the most mouth-watering and delicious meals you could ever dream of. We found a table, and the waitress came by with menus. I looked it over carefully. There were almost too many options, and all of them looked amazing. However, I'm not the type of person to take risks by trying new food, so even though it was a little expensive, I settled on the tried-and-true cheeseburger and fries. My brother ordered a cut of chicken fried steak. "You ever been here before?" Alex asked me. I hadn't. I stop here every time I come to visit Andrew. Little hole-in-the-walls like these always have the best food. I agreed and told him about some of the restaurants I had visited at college. This was the most we had talked all summer. Finally interrupting us, our food arrived. My burger smelled like heaven and looked even better. Juicy meat covered in melted cheese with ripe tomatoes, lettuce, and an onion sitting on top, all held together by an enormous sesame seed bun with a toothpick stuck right through it. A pile of freshly made fries sat beside it on my plate, covered in salt. I tore through the whole plate, devouring every last bit. This truly was the best burger I'd ever had. Even still, sorry. As I sat back in bliss, digesting, the waitress at last came by, bearing the question I had been dreading. Separate checks or together? Although the food was delicious, it would be a bit to my pitiful bank account nonetheless. Together, Alex answered before I had a chance to say anything. The waitress left to ring us up. He would have never done that for me when I was younger. He would have wanted me to fend for myself. Alex must have seen the look of surprise in my eyes because he started to explain. When I was in college, there's plenty of times where Andrew took me out to eat. Now that you're in college, I've got to do the same for you. He shrugged and laughed. When you're rich and famous, you can pay me back someday. We talked the rest of the way to Andrew's about a lot of different things. A few days later, we talked the whole ride back home too. I always stop at that diner whenever I pass by, and I plan to make good on the promise to pay my brother back someday.
Oh, I like that piece.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got kind of caught up and I forgot I had to turn the page.
Yeah, right. No worries.
I just love the description that this author does in this this piece. The one thing I really love about Tim in his work is his ability to bring us into a place and we can taste the air.
Yeah.
I literally could taste the air with this, and I thought that was a really brilliant move of it was almost like hungry, but I don't think it was him necessarily or the character necessarily hunger for the food, as it might have been more for the conversation and the time with his brother. So Andrew, I believe, is the older brother, Alex is the middle brother, and then Tim would be the younger brother. So this is a nonfiction piece, so this would be about I guess Tim's point of view.
Yeah, and I like it too because the entire piece felt like a meal. There was an emptiness at the beginning, and then there was kind of a filling up in the middle, which would be the meal. Obviously described as the meal too, because that's where they're eating. And then there's a satiety, I think is the correct use of that word, at the end. where it's both physical and like an emotional almost, because there's kind of a closure there. There's an ending.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Yeah, that's
that
really...
last line, you know, that last line where he goes, sorry about that. You know, I plan to make good on the promise to pay my brother back someday.
Yeah.
Ending a story. By the way, this was the first like draft he turned in. There was no workshopping. There was no, it was like, okay, guys, do a nonfiction, hand it to me, and then we'll go from there. Literally, and he ended it in that way. Endings are almost the hardest, most impossible thing sometimes. Yeah. And I thought he ended that really brilliantly, really tied a bow. So, yeah. So thank you for letting me read that. I really love being a teacher and getting to read. Sometimes students blow me out of the water.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we have, how much time?
Yeah, a few minutes left.
Yeah,
so usually, there's a lot we have to pack in here. Usually we kind of like to see a common theme through these at the end, or maybe not common themes, but things that we identify with that we can pull out on each one that are maybe similar or different for purposeful reasons. This is kind of our impression of how these fit together. So,
I kind of want to go back to Tim's in that idea of it, without realizing it, it's a finding of self, actually through food. And that was kind of the way in which he described his, you know, thirst and hunger for something bigger. Yeah. And he used that theme of food. I thought that was pretty well done.
Yeah. I see like in Overcame, she stands steady as a stone. There's this thing that something the rest of the world is impressing upon this person, and it makes this person. And then we see Lily's, who is the rest of the world is frustrating because we can't get there. And so we're looking for something different. And man, I just wish it was number, like, because this is too raw for me, too real. I just wish I was a flower, in some sense. And then we see Hole in the Wall, where there's like a reconciliation between two people and two things that are happening, almost like a meal. Like there's a fillingness there. It's like finding the happiness with someone else almost. So we see like a personal, and then maybe like a others-centered one.
You know, and I like that you mentioned that, because I kind of believe that to find oneself, sometimes you need other people to do that. There's a lot of loneliness in the other two poems, it feels. And then I feel like there's this so if we're going to start with Overcame, I actually really believe Hole in the Wall is the Overcame, you know. There's a little bit more to this. We kind of started halfway through this story, but you can just see where this author does such a great job of, we can start in the middle of this story and already be a part of it without needing all the detail. And just, we already know in the end, you know, how it began and how we came to. So I thought that was really well done. And that's a really hard thing to do. Prose is not easy to really, you know, guide and flow. Same thing with poetry, you know, when we talk about those line breaks and we're trying to pull our readers through, you know, with like when we push for punctuation and stuff, you know, when you stop us, you stop our thoughts and then you bring us to the next thing, or you could just keep us flowing like with what Lily did. Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because Overcame is this strong, not empty piece, but it's almost neutral in a sense. It's just strength, and that's it. I am ready to persevere. And then we see this really large amount of depth in this with the Lily piece, just about questioning that, not necessarily, almost questioning the want for that strength, the want for that hero, the want for that stuff. And then we see almost like a filling up at the end when another person steps in, and there's this kind of like bumping together of two people, and then this whole really beautiful ending to that almost. Yeah.
All right. I want to keep going, but it looks like we are running out of time.
And so end of our show, we'll do a couple plugs here. If you want to submit pieces, please do. You can do so at write.onair@gmail.com.
That's WRITE.onair@gmail.com.
Yes. And I want to plug the next episode of this series, I guess, or show, because what we've done so far is we've had pieces that people have submitted and we've talked about them. But for people who don't write that much, or people who are interested, I'd like to have some people on here, I'm planning to come on and actually talk about how they do their writing process. So how it works for them, how it functions, what stands out when they write, what do they try to write, why do they try to write this, what made them write this, stuff like that. Those questions that I think would be interesting to know about some of our authors.
Sounds great. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. And also, someone had mentioned to me, if you have a comment on a piece or something like that, email me, and that will be the start of the next show. We'll talk about it a little bit.
I love that. It's great.
because
Please do.
I have had people ask if their pieces have had any mention of among the audience members, and I haven't yet, but I realized I've never opened that up to the audience. So now it's open
Let us
to you.
know.
Yeah, please. And this is Right Down on Air. I'm Kevin, and this is Kylene.
Have a great evening.
Good night, everyone.